Unit 12 has explored various current trends and contemporary problems and tried to project those into the future. Islam and terrorism in the Western media. The impression of many Westerners, an image derived in part by official propaganda ignorance and the mainstream media, is that violence is condoned by Islamic teachings and that the Arab world has fundamentally different aspirations concerning development, democracy, and freedom. Although there is some truth to all generalization, the Western media has often depicted Islam through pejorative stereotypes, by highlighting unrepresentative acts and sensationalizing radicals, or failing to reveal the context for political violence. In particular, the relationship of bin Laden, al-Qaeda, and the cult of militant Islam, with mainstream Islam and Arab culture. This has been grossly exaggerated, while the West's ties to corrupt Arab governments, petroleum, and torture is rarely explained. The inflated threat of al-Qaeda. In the wake of 9/11, the Bush administration inflated Osama bin Laden into a criminal mastermind who built a vast terrorist network, al-Qaeda, with a capacity to undermine Western civilization. In fact, Osama bin Laden is just one leader of al-Qaeda. His militant brand of jihadism has been rejected by most Arabs, and al-Qaeda never had the true operational capability to inflict serious harm outside of the Middle East. The myth of the war on terrorism. The World Trade Center attack provided a pretext for the Bush administration to implement a preconceived grand strategy for U.S. hegemony, as spelled out in the Project for the New American Century. Following this blueprint, the U.S. increased military spending, invaded Iraq, and started to build permanent bases in Iraq, despite the fact that Saddam had no connection to 9/11. The war on terrorism offered a convenient slogan to instill fear into the populace and to justify costly wars that would otherwise be unpopular, with the goal of fundamentally reshaping the United States' position in the world, securing the Middle East oil reserves, and keeping China at bay. A planetary emergency. While we cannot predict the consequences of global warming with 100% accuracy, the Vostok data shows a close correlation between greenhouse gases and temperature. Given that we have shattered historical parameters for greenhouse levels, and that current forecasts keep raising future temperature estimates, many scientists fear that we have reached a tipping point. The Earth is already experiencing climate change. Food prices are rising, and global growth is dimmed by the costs from increasingly more violent and frequent natural disasters. Peak oil. Most experts think that we are near peak oil, the postulated point where half the world's petroleum reserves are exhausted, igniting a price shock as supply and demand diverge. Human civilization is petroleum addicted, and cheap oil has been the fuel powering the still accelerating industrial revolution. While green technology does have exciting prospects, this cannot yet replace oil, nor will it be easy to transition a society based upon an oil infrastructure. Tragedy of the global commons. According to Hardin's model, in global capitalism, the environment constitutes an open resource system in which nations have a perverse incentive to pollute or harvest resources because they capture all of the benefit but pay out only a fraction of the total cost. Historically, all open resource systems lead to tragedy, a sharp, irreversible decline in the environmental capacity. Not coincidentally, millennial ecosystem assessments consistently reveal that the Earth's biosphere is under severe stress. Global paralysis. Many of the challenges facing the international community, climate change, peak oil, the instability of the global financial system, nuclear proliferation, just to name a few, are not being addressed by serious policy remedies. The current world system remains dominated by relict ideas and institutions inherited from our past. And barring the creation of radically different structures of global governance, there's little hope of bringing the current system of capitalism in equilibrium with resources and environmental limits.